Hey there. Here we are again.
Hello, hello, here we are.
One more time with an interesting topic, isn't it? Let me find another
Ah,
background.
It's been a
about
while since we did like a TDD kata
this
and some coding.
TDD, whatever that is, right? TDD.
Yeah, we've had a very strong leadership focus lately. Of course, TDD February, but we only had Nick, our trainer guest, on. He was the only one sort of doing a practical kata. It's been a while since we did one with the community, so it'll be nice to. Well, we're not coding today, right? We're just vibe coding. Isn't that
No,
the
we
plan?
just look how a machine is coding for us.
You
So
just yell at the machine until it pops out the correct code.
let's do the lazy thing today, right? I was thinking of going to the couch, right? Just watching, and just it is what it is. So we're doing today a little bit of actually it's vibe coding. So we
I
don't
think it will end
really.
up being vibe coding, yeah.
It will end up being vibe coding, and that's one
So
of my learnings.
my
I'm using that now for quite a while.
My primary
ahead.
concern is that we've obviously Isabel, hello. Hi from Stockholm. I see Nitin is with us. Peter, Valentina, hello. The Substack crew is on LinkedIn. We're on your LinkedIn. Yes. Okay. And YouTube is live. Yes. Yes. All good. All channels live. So my primary concern is we're going to do like a kata today. My primary concern is that
Don't be concerned.
that these katas are solved problems on the web. So you can treat them as like open source puzzle boxes where the solutions are known. So if Kaloyan, hello, if we can, reasonably describe what we want from Claude and from what's the JetBrains one?
Junie.
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 Yeah. So if we can reasonably explain to Claude and Junie what we want, I would like as a very strict, like A grade, A plus, I would expect it to like get everything correct in one prompt, in one iteration. Because these katas are solved problems. Right?
Soft or solved problems? Solved problems.
Solved problems, yes.
Solved.
So for example, everybody is vibe coding Flappy Bird or Flight Simulator, but these are solved problems that have open source engines, right? So it's very easy to vibe code on, like we have confirmation bias with everybody who's sort of vibe coding these sort of games, because you can tell it to get the engine right and then give it a little bit of graphical flavor. And for a lot of things, that's enough for like a little demo. The real question is whether it's easy to iterate on. And to me, I work with a lot of engineers who use Copilot, for example, and I see them slow down because when Copilot gives them a suggestion, they read it, and they're like, no, that's not what I want. And then they type a little bit and hit backspace to get a reprompt, and they read it again, and they know the answer. They could just write it, but they're waiting for.
That's the opposite of. It is not flow coding and it's not vibe coding. It's actually
the opposite.
Hesitation coding. It's like, oh no, I don't know. Or maybe coding.
I saw somebody link like a British skit on, like trying to complete each other's sentences and getting it wrong. I've been to the today to the doctor. No. Tax office? No. School? No. Outside? No. Oh, I've been to the veterinarian. Yeah. So it has this. Is this what you want? No. Yeah, that's what I wanted. Right. So it's not very good if you have to repeat yourself. Right. It's not very good if you have to like telling it no. Anyway,
okay, but what are we actually going to do today?
So you and I discussed this, and we've sort of compromised on the Mars rover kata.
Yes.
We were thinking about doing the Gilded Rose kata, but that one's specifically a refactoring heavy kata, and I don't care. I know that LLMs are not very good at refactoring, so I don't want to run that experiment right now. I've seen that at least often enough to know that it's just not
how experienced are you with agentic coding? Not with GitHub Copilot stuff or JetBrains included AI.
I don't know. I don't know how to measure that. Yeah, I don't know how to measure that. I use it more than a few times.
You measure it in dollars, on your credit card. You measure it like that.
I have spent less than $100 so far on agentic coding solutions, but it is non-zero, right? So
okay.
That's not counting.
So in a month now, I managed to get to $400. That's actually already a sum. So if you mentioned
that would be a concern. Yeah, that would be a concern if you're not getting a significant productivity increase. That's 5,000 per year.
It was actually an increase.
That's 5,000 per year, right? So
yeah, but it actually increased a lot. But let's take a look what that's actually capable of doing.
Yeah.
Today with the Mars rover Kata, it looks a little bit like a game, and what we want to do is actually, well, I can show it. That's that one. Is it readable? It's not readable. So
yeah, so that's
better, right?
We took the explanation on Coding Dojo. There are a few different versions of the Kata. That's the one we took, just to have like a visual representation of it. And I believe you set it up in a TypeScript project that does allow us to compile JSX as well. So we could decide to go for a front-end version. Usually this Kata is done in a console version, in a console variant. But
okay, yeah, we just do that in a front-end version, so it's more visible to the people.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yes. So you can really see what is Cloud Code doing. So so maybe we're going for Juni as well, which is a similar product, but I quickly introduce Cloud Code, what that is. So Cloud Code is an agentic AI client, actually. So it's probably not a client, it's more than that, because what it actually does, you provide this piece of software some rights to actually work for you on the stuff which is actually your job as a coder. So it does use basically the APIs in the background, like Cloud Sonnet, or in that case it basically only use Cloud Sonnet, but there are other like agentic AIs which are trained on other models. But what they actually do is they have a little agent which is running on your computer with specific rights, and basically the brain is outside, which is the LLM, but there is some form of decision-making progress. And so this little tool, this agent, can work in iterations until a feature or a task is done. So instead of just generating you some code, it knows your code base, it is able to read and research your code base, and then writes an implementation, then runs and tests the implementation and figures out if that implementation is actually working or not, and fixing by itself the problems until you get to whatever green state you have defined up front. That is what Cloud Code is pretty effectively doing. Actually, the most effective tool I've used so far, but the most expensive at the same time. And that's the reason why we want to start with that one, to take a look what it will do by that. We don't use the Brave mode as Juni is calling that one. Brave mode means we let just this thing run by itself, so it makes decision what to run, and we allow everything. What we do is we basically take a look at the steps, review them, and Dennis, with his experience as a coach, will talk about that. I will do my waffling as well a little bit, and then we're talking about, where's my mouse? Then we're talking about how good is this solution actually working. And we will prompt as well to make it in a TDD approach, which means that we want to have it testing, write tests up front. So we want to watch how it actually performs. And what Dennis is really, as far as I understand, is actually wanting to see is how good it can do it in one prompt. So normally you can do flow coding in small tasks, and you are still the pilot, and you use it as an extremely advanced co-pilot, right, to do the next small batch, but you can very easily review because you have a clear expectation about this little batch you want to code, you want to program. What we want today is the let's lean back, have a coffee. Unfortunately, I don't have a coffee here, but let's do it without a coffee and just let the machine do that stuff and just give a rough direction, maybe just some course correction, but we try to avoid that course correction. So we want to see what we get for the money, and we will see how much it will cost us. So basically, there is a credit card behind that one, probably some dollars, I suppose, but we will see how it works out.
You're totally in YouTube mode. Wait, hang on. Let me go to YouTube mode as well. Let me go to YouTube mode.
I'll give you some time. No, but everyone who's watching that, please give us a comment, right? If on YouTube, Substack, LinkedIn, wherever you're watching, are you using AI? And are you using it as a Gen AI or an agentic agent in some form, like Claude? We have Windsurf,
if you're a software
Cursor,
developer, let us know in the comments. Leave us a like if you enjoy this, and most importantly, if you have access to the live chat of the platform, leave us a message in the live chat about, you're probably in tech, whether you're primarily using LLMs for co-piloting, so having like that autocomplete, or whether you're actually having conversations with it, about the conversation with the copilot, or using a fully agentic tool where it also gives you suggestions and codes as you're coding in the background. Claude, for example, as Adrian mentioned, is a command line tool that acts like a watch server. When you say node run watch, it starts watching your code changes, and then it like refreshes your browser or it runs your tests. Claude does that basically, but instead of reading your files changing, it is actually waiting for you to talk to it on a prompt, and it's also reading its own input. So the thing it generates from the faraway server, from the actual agent server, that it's also using as input to then highlight to you and format to you and contextualize it. And really, the server that's running on your machine for Claude is an optimizer that helps determine the faraway server how much or how little context to include into the query, or whether it needs to run some grep command locally to get the correct files into the context. Because as Adrian mentioned, it can get expensive, and that is because it is the cost structure for Claude, and probably other agentic AIs as well. The cost structure is exponential. Now that means it's cheap early on, and it's cheap, and then when you're having too much fun, it's $500 per day, right? So because the longer you're having the same conversations, the more it's filling up the context space. Think of it like you pay depending on how much tokens are in the current conversation when you prompt it, and it keeps all of its previous states and answers and questions in the token space. So the bigger the token space grows, the more you pay for each subsequent prompt until you reset. And in order for this to not get out of control and accrue a $200,000 bill, it has a token limit and says, okay, we're at the limit now. This is now out of control. You have a Claude addiction. It's time to stop. And it says it's time to stop, so that you stop your work, you extract your prompt, and then you restart from an empty context window. So you roll the cost back down to zero, the minimum, and then you start rolling it back up again. So in my experience, I can code iteratively very well without assistance. So when I'm looking for something, I'm not looking for an LLM to supplant, especially in a Kata. I'm not looking for an LLM to supplant my ability to iteratively code. What I'm looking for is to get a reasonably quick step on a very small scope, so that when I ask it to do something, I sort of want to get to the right area in one prompt. And then basically just take my context window with me and say, okay, now we're doing this small step. So I'm taking care of the scoping, and I want it to do the largest possible practical step within that scope.
So in front end, it's very very often the build-up of the very bloaty components you need to build and all these kind of things.
Yeah, or there are intermediate build steps, or you might have a TypeScript project that then also has the intermediate JavaScript files built in, and then it's using both the problem. It can very quickly get complicated, which is why you need an agent that is aware of these issues. This is definitely not a trivial problem.
Good.
Running.
So we are 20 minutes in. Let's start with that stuff.
Let's get some.
Right. So for everyone who joined late, we're doing the Mars rover Kata today in a TDD mode execution in a front-end project with Cloud Code in vibe coding. Okay. So the Mars rover project. Actually, I don't know do you know the Kata very well?
I haven't done, no. So we have to say, we haven't rehearsed this kata because I wanted us to come in with a fresh mind.
So let's go ahead, explain that.
So I'm not biased. We have a Mars rover. The Mars rover, the input is a map, and basically the Mars rover starts. We need to build an API that receives the map and a series of commands, and then we need to see where the Mars rover ends up. There are certain rules about where the Mars rover can move to and where it cannot move to. And one of the instructions, I'm not sure if it's in this one as well, but in the previous instructions that was very interesting to me was that we're supposed to assume that the grid is infinite, right? So it's basically a torus shape. Now you can decide whether it's actually spherical or torus shaped, depending on like how the behavior on the corners looks like. That also what makes this kata non-deterministic, right? So there are multiple solutions to this problem, multiple viable solutions to this problem. And I just wanted to come in unbiased, because if I know the solution, I will probably bias the LLM by telling it how to recreate what I have already created, and then then it's kind of pointless.
Yeah.
So that's the kata. It's a tool. I just want to see, from my perspective, I want to know how you're going to pre-prompt it, what you would put in regarding code quality, and ultimately, I want to look at the output and say, okay, if I had to now continue manually, how easy is it to add a simple change to the code that the LLM produced?
Okay, let's go.
That would be like my litmus test for maintainability. I know it is possible to get a working solution in a single prompt, but that is a very low standard. I want a working solution that is easy to maintain. So
it's still a human project. So it's a human readable and workable code base, and it's not an AI black box. That is important, right?
Exactly.
So several prototypes these days with vibe coding are actually built in a black box scenario. So you don't really do your own things inside there, right?
Yeah, by non-coders, right? So
exactly.
People who don't know how to code or don't like coding in a particular framework, they use it to sort of bridge the gap of, well, I'm a Rust developer, I don't know any React, so I'm going to vibe code React with Claude, and then I can do my Rust stuff, right? So backend engineers will vibe code front-end stuff, front-end engineers will vibe code backend stuff. But, I wouldn't call that software engineering. That's just using a low-code tool, like a more expensive low-code tool to get some low coding done.
Okay, is that readable in the stream?
I think so, yeah.
For everyone who's watching, just let us know if you think that the AI is capable of actually doing that task, or if you have doubts about that. So regarding a good quality, not getting it done somehow, but in a thing where you would say, well, that's actually better than I thought. That would be interesting to know. And now I just go quickly in and describe the scenario for everyone who doesn't know what agentic coding actually looks like. This is not Cursor. This is not Windsurf. This is right now one of the most effective solutions, but it is a CLI environment, and it's a research preview. So that's actually not a real product right now. Actually, it is, but it is made as a research preview.
It's good enough. It's good enough.
It's good enough. So it is basically for especially the people like me growing up with a C64 and Amiga. It's pretty cool because we have here a thing where we can have some commands like this. We can do the clearing thing, which is quite important, but I don't do that right now because I just started it. So how do I actually start that? I start that by typing in Claude, and that's it. It basically opens a prompt. So the first time you do an init, this is basically a command here inside Cloud Code, but I've done that already. That's actually something which costs around $1. And then the entire agent scans your project with basically with shell commands, searching, grabs, and all these kind of Linux or Windows stuff, depending on the system you're working. And then it creates such a file. So I have extended that file, but it creates a file how we actually or Claude things as a pre-prompt how you work. So we have code style guidelines, we have commands which are passed. And we have practices like the practices. I have added those practices. This is the reason why there's some spelling mistakes maybe, but I don't care. AI can handle that. So, for example, how we handle conditional JSX rendering, and we don't like ternaries, for example. So we don't want to have them. Most of the time, it respects what you ask for it. Sometimes it simply doesn't, but this is still an issue of AI these days. And for very important. So we have tests here. So we basically say, or not tests, but in this case, it's a compile. When we want to do TypeScript and linter checks, it's basically PMP run compile. It does know that, and it does know how to run a single test because that will be part of that as well. And we will see the output running at this moment. So that's the React project. We have Tailwind as CSS, as a CSS layer. And this TypeScript, and we have a little bit Zustand as a state management, 10-stack query as a, but we don't need that one. So we'll probably stay with a React component. I have already prepared that React component here. This is a simple scaffolding thing. So we have that here. So when we take a look at that one, we see here a little Mars rover Kata, but this is only to make it a little bit more easy for this stream. Normally you can tell the AI to do that for you. So it would create files, work on the files, test the files, optimize the files, do red-green development by itself. So, but we start with that point, so it's easier for you, the audience, to grasp what's actually going on. Okay, so there's a question, Isabel. Can you please explain what you mean? So you can use it.
I think there was Claude regarding it's a research preview. I think Claude is safe to use in production. Like, you know, you're still in control as a software engineer. Claude is a very good tool. It is reasonable to use it for production coding, and I think it is being used in such a scenario.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, I would say so. Okay, let's take a look what we do. So we have the pre-prompt, which is that. So we have some guidelines, some guardrails, which shall enforce quality or hope to enforce. We have a starting thing where a starting component. On the right hand side, we have the place where we is in 1 minute prompt, and we have a file there. Why do I have an open file here? Because I write the prompt inside here. The reason for that is that is the CLI. You can press the wrong button and it's gone.
So annoying. It's so annoying.
You want to have some form of history, and that's actually a very good thing. So there are other AI agents like Junie here, which does that for you, but we can show that later to not.
It's also how I prompt ChatGPT as well. I always save my prompts externally and then I move them over, because we need to remember it's not a conversation with a human, right? So every prompt, and if you've used the advanced voice mode, also Adrian, if we can make it a little bit more complex, I would add the.
Good engineers always add complexity, right? Wrong, but we do it anyway.
So what I would do is, does it have obstacles? This version.
Well, you need to.
It does. Okay. Maybe. No, that's all right. That's all right. Good enough.
Okay. So I just pasted the original project requirements, but I want to have a pre-prompt for that, so a specific one. So you said you want to see how Claude Code is doing that at best in one session or one go, maybe, but definitely in one session, right? Yeah. So we need to create a component. Mars rover Kata TSX, which is already existing. And or how to and you need to implement the project requirements in one go.
So I wouldn't
This
prompt it.
is
I
what
wouldn't prompt it.
Dennis
I wouldn't prompt it in
is
one go.
telling
Yeah,
you.
Adrian, this is too much.
Okay.
Well, are you like you know? I don't want the AI to know that it has to be in one prompt. You know what I mean?
Okay. So yeah. Please I had a good posting about this. I say please, and I will never stop that. So it's a machine,
Yeah.
I know, but
So
I can't. So what
so
is
I
that?
would
Just
describe
go
it.
ahead. You tell me that makes more sense that we do it both at the same time.
Please provide a list of reasonable tests to make sure we have high coverage. Test them in the order of simplest to most complex
And
behavior.
not so fast. I'm not so fast in typing. Provide a list of reasonable tests
for all requirements.
Yep.
Order the list in ascending order of complexity, starting with the simplest to the most complex behavior.
Oh. What was the next one? Sorry.
Provide implementations for all the tests. Where you are uncertain, provide scaffolds for those tests. This is very important. Claude will hallucinate more if it tries to give you an answer, even if it doesn't know. So you by prompting it to, like, you want to give it like an exit clause on what to do when it's uncertain, so that you can then look for the uncertainty, right? So I said, if you're not sure, create a test scaffold. So if the solution has a test scaffold, I know where it was uncertain, right? So that is extremely valuable for ascertaining hallucinations and how well it's doing. Implement the interface in good faith. We will verify it visually, but feel free to do to provide a reasonable, simple UI implementation in TypeScript. Are we doing React? In React, if we can do. Is this a React project? It is, right?
Yes, UI, and write the tests in Cypress component. Tests in the same directory.
Yeah.
And call it Mars rover Kata CITSX. Note the UI should be good visible since we show it as a presentation. So, okay. Anything else? What do you think?
No, so we are now testing two things. We are now testing how good the LLM is, how good this workflow is, and also our ability to prompt it well. So this is, let's say, a fairly naive and overly ambitious prompt, but it'll get us some result. So it's our first prompt. I now want to see what the baseline result is, and then we can ascertain the quality of it.
Okay. So then let's take this one and put it in here. So we don't do the auto mode, so no brave mode. We'll take a look what is actually doing.
Yeah. Just do
so I paste it inside here. It looks like that, but in reality it is prompted in. I hope it's the correct one. And then we start. This is a fresh session, and let's take a look what actually happens. It's brewing now. So
notice that I had to prompt it, to write tests, how to test it, etc. Right? Because I don't know if we tell it to just give us the implementation, it'll give us the implementation. I don't want to prompt it once to give me the implementation, and then it prompts a second time to give it the tests. Like, if I want the implementation to be easily testable, I need to include that in the prompt so that it creates code that is easy to test.
Yeah,
you have issues.
Somehow it's not working right. I don't know. I'm online. It's the first time I see this.
Oh, no. We are on the VPN because of the stream.
But the VPN shouldn't be an issue here. But
Just make sure you don't leak any API keys on stream.
No, I won't. Let me quickly restart that one, because I can access everything there. Give me config, compact config, cost doctor. Let's quickly check that one. I have no MCP server here. But anyway, let's just try that again. Maybe it was an one-time thing.
No, that looks like it'll time out. Yeah, it's offline. Adrian, okay, I think that's a VPN issue.
Yeah. Wait a second. 1 second. I'm still there. Hello? Hello? Do you hear me?
Yes. Still here.
Okay, then let's try it again. One more time. This time without VPN. And if that's not working, it's simply not. Oh, now it's working. You are right. It's unfortunate. No matter. But now we see what's actually going on.
It might just be a security precaution. Maybe they want you to re-log in when you're switched to the VPN, so that your IP is a little bit,
probably network thing.
Yeah. Network thing. Yeah.
So you see this little message here. It tells you in these messages what it's actually doing. So I create the master over Kata component with tests. Let me first examine if the files already exist. Yeah. So it now reads. Here you see shell commands actually going on.
Yeah. So what it does. So what Cloud does when it tells you something, it creates a pre-prompt for itself based on what you wrote, to help see if there's any shell commands it can run to optimize the token space. That's usually the text messages from Cloud. It's not actually thinking, it's actually running commands to see if it can make the prompting more economical.
Okay. Now it tells us that it will basically do it. It has found the actual file and it will update the existing component. Here you see the typical diff, like the red is gone files or removed files, green is added, and it already understood roughly what we want to have design-wise, and it basically adds this. I would say we'll review it later because we want to see the progress, right? So now it asks me, shall we take this?
Yes.
Basically, we can do the same as well by just watching how it's actually working, but this is not the mode. Let's first go into the next one. Now it's doing the same again. Here you see how your tokens, aka your money, is basically going away from you in that moment, and it basically is doing something for you. But it has already created a fair amount of code, so to be fair. But let's take a look later if it's actually... I'm already seeing here ternaries, so, which annoys me a little bit.
Yeah.
But
it won't follow all prompts in good faith, because it won't have a very good way of ascertaining how important your request was. And I also... hang on, we have a question on YouTube. Akash, we're following the Mars rover Kata that you can find on various different sites. I suggest you Google Mars rover Kata, and there are a few versions. We're doing a mix of the Coding Dojo and the catalog version of the Mars rover
I provide the link again. 1 second. It is already in LinkedIn. It's already provided. So that's it.
Yeah, it's the YouTube link. Yeah, Akash, if you go to the live chat, not in the comments on YouTube, to the live chat on the right side, and you do need to switch to most recent messages, not top messages, to be able to see it, to see Adrian's message immediately.
So it now wants to create a test folder directory, including a file. So we say yes in that mode. So as I said, you can allow to that the thing actually works autonomously, but let's still stick with it, that we can actually see and talk a little bit about that for the people who never worked with an agentic.
It's breaking up the problem, essentially trying to ascertain how many different files it needs to create for you, and then it allows you to sort of course correct every single file separately. So it is basically coming at you with code suggestions from like a git diff perspective, and then it's basically doing every file for you linearly and asking you whether you'll keep them. But of course, reviewing it in such a way is nonsensical, because the code only makes sense generated in one go. So only in hindsight, looking back, will you be able to see if the entire diff is sensical. Now, what I'm seeing already is that Adrian, hello, the other
Hey.
Adrian, Adrian,
Hello, Adrian. Adrian.
It is already quite swayed in how it's doing the implementation because it's taking a very UI heavy focus. So if we had done the terminal version with purely unit tests, it would probably be done in less code. But it's interesting to see how much attention it's giving to the UI.
So as you can see, the file is now here. Is it? No, it's not. It will
The
be
test file is
created.
still missing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's still missing. So let's go ahead. Oh, the token counter. Okay, never mind. Could be a nice evening.
It has to be there, like as a research preview and as like a beta.
Actually, it wasn't in the beginning, so they actually improved the CLI UI quite a lot. So So it's still going now and seeing. Okay, I have implemented some stuff. Now I'm actually doing PnP run compile in that mode. So we haven't mentioned in the prompt that we actually want to have a TDD approach. I think we forgot that.
It's okay. I told it I want tests first, right? So
okay.
TDD, look, TDD is what I, the human, am doing. I don't need LLM to do TDD with me because I can, I can follow TDD very well. So what it's doing right now, it's giving me a list of tests, it's giving me a reasonable implementation for the tests, and then I can do TDD on top of that. I have no problem with that.
So here we already see a little bit of vibe coding. Since we simply press enter here, we don't 100% understand what is actually changing because we haven't or we weren't aware of the implementation because that was in a flow, in a vibe coding process. So it's a little bit like a black box right now. So it doesn't really make sense to say yes or no in that moment because you can be strict about that and really go step by step as a very good autocompleter, or you go in a flow and review later. But in between, it doesn't make sense. So we basically say yes, go ahead, and the next time
it has to because you prompted it to follow the linter, and right now the linter is giving errors, right? So we didn't tell it to code in strict mode. We just wanted it to figure it out by itself, right?
So there exists now an execute command, and it will fix the execute command. This is what I mean. So I'm not aware that an execute next command is actually existing. So yeah, I would now say I choose the second option now. Yes, don't ask this again in the same session. So let's go ahead and give it a little bit more space to do. And this now the brave mode, only for the brave, right?
Adrian, let me ask you, normally, if this takes a long time on your project, what would you do now in this time?
Coffee. Probably coffee and playing with the kids.
So
actually, it is. So when I do this, I actually go and plan already the next step. But my prompts are way shorter than those things. And then I play with the kids. Well, actually, sometimes I do some special refactorings or large things where I actually come back after 300 seconds and it's basically done, and then I review it. What I'm not like, I saw that the more complex the things are, the more review work you actually need to do. I don't want to have the feeling in my own code base to have a black box there. So it is more like I do it step by step. I'm not doing vibe coding. So batch working, yes. Then I allow that except edits thing to brave mode to run like we're doing it right now. But I already feel uncomfortable because I have no clue what's going on right now. But it's obviously doing something. But that was the purpose of the session today. How good is the AI agent actually if it's doing exactly this? I would be interested if anyone in the audience. Can you follow when it runs like this? Because you can actually follow it right on the screen right now. Can you follow quickly what actually happens? And by the way, it's done. So first iteration, interestingly, cost. We are now at $75. 75 cents. And we have an API time of 3 minutes 30 or 40. So nearly 4 minutes, right? There you have a good overview. No, it's not Cursor, Adrian. Adrian is asking. That is
Cloud. Yeah.
WebStorm with a terminal open with Claude Code Research Preview.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now we have a summary. So it tells me that we have linting errors, but they are not related, which means somewhere I haven't cleaned up my code. Our component.
Yeah, this is not a clean project. This is a project that has already been set up with Cypress and everything.
Exactly. There are probably some console warnings, something like that. Our component implementation and tests have been fixed. Let's summarize the tests we have created. It's basically summarizing all the steps, and most agents are actually doing that exactly like that. And you can basically see those kind of things. And our implementation provides a user-friendly interface, a visual a grid display, command buttons, blah, 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 speed adjustment, those kind of things. So let's take a look quickly at the code.
Speed adjustment. That's odd. That's a hallucination.
Okay. Well, now.
Oh, speed adjustment for the animation. Interesting.
That is weird. It never did that way. So I was wondering already why it used mkdir, so make dir to actually make that. That's weird. So that's a mistake. So it never did that way, and I don't know why it is doing that actually today like this. It's a bit strange, right? So you can do this, but this is not the pattern we use, and it should be able to know that.
Can we run it?
Yeah,
easily?
probably we can.
We can mount it somewhere.
Sorry.
So one of the biases that we introduced very early on is that we told it to like focus on the UI element, right? So we don't want to have like a subcatenous API. We don't want to have an API that is working in isolation, but then we have no UI for it, right? So we said, if you're a strong LLM, just build a UI while you're building the backend, right? Like, give me a fully functioning slice where you can give me a fully functioning, slice where you can give me a fully functioning UI as well. Because if you don't, then I can probably do it faster by hand, because this is quite a trivial kata. Right,
okay, so now we already have a problem. It doesn't recognize it as a test, so I don't know even if this thing was running the tests. So I would write that now down as a post prompt. Please rewrite the Mars rover Kata as a actual file next to the actual component instead of making it a folder. Then run it and make sure that the test screen, well, just give it a little bit of a post prompt.
Do you think you could have done this that you said in the prompt faster manually?
Yes, but we want to do a vibe coding session today.
Okay.
I normally do that kind of things myself, to be honest, because I don't want to pay for that. That doesn't make sense. Because sometimes it starts to, then I need to take a look how you have done it in the entire project, and it starts to reach 20 files, which is quite expensive in the long run. So, but let's do it like this. So it's actually doing something now. It does an LSLA, so it takes a look at. So this is what I mean. It's already doing now. This is one of the things I don't like right now. So it doesn't seem to recognize what it was doing in the same session. So it's doing strange things now. That's disappointing. No, actually, I don't want to do this.
It looks odd.
That looks odd. No, don't do this. So I basically stopped it right now, and I will do that myself. Okay. So we have that here. So we just take that name, then we rename that one here, which is actually quite easy. Just
to answer chat, is that IDE Fleet or WebStorm? This is WebStorm. This is WebStorm that has a terminal window open, and Claude is running as a shell command inside a terminal session inside WebStorm. This is how I prefer to run Claude as well. It's how I prefer to run btest as well.
let's quickly take a look. Okay, now now let's see if this thing actually was able to. Now we have it, Mars rover Kata. There we see it. It's not even starting.
Let's see. What's the issue?
I don't know.
That's very odd. Ah, okay.
No, it's running. Okay, it has created something. So we have probably one mistake already. So it wasn't testing it. So we need to get to the stage. We are now in a partly red thing, and we need to get to a green state. That's the next thing. It's actually pretty red right now.
Yeah, of course.
I think that was guessworking, so it never tested it because I couldn't test it either, right? It was setting it up incorrectly, and I didn't like that it wasn't mentioning it. And this is what I don't like in these large prompts, because the larger the prompt is, the less accurate the result is. AI isn't
Absolutely,
that far.
absolutely. But the issue is also that, at least what I found is that it is not very good at iterative prompting. If your original prompt, if your original plan of action was this, and you wanted to do it line by line, then you would have ended up at this stage, and it would have taken a lot longer. Right. So first we need to. I would also always recommend, first let's test the operator. First let's test how clear we are at writing a prompt. Now, from here on, I don't want to work with this code base iteratively. What I would do here is reset, restore, and restart from the initial prompt. Right? Because now it's telling me, okay, we took a too large step. If we're doing test list and design and implementation and UI all in the same prompt, you give me hallucinated garbage. So now I would already narrow it down. I would now revert and go to a simpler prompt. To me, this is a failure. The single prompt challenge, it didn't work very well.
But let's still go to the point where we actually take a look. How many iterations do we need to get to the point?
Okay.
So
I'm happy to do that experiment. I just want to be conscious of time. I do want to wrap up in like 20 minutes or 15 minutes, so that we have something to show. Right. So the fault is ours, right? Like our prompt was very ambitious and naive, and now which is normal. These things will happen, right? Like you will prompt it. You will be you will be greedy, right? You will be tempted to be greedy as an engineer and say, "Oh, just give me if you have the finished solution, just give me the finished solution."
So now it's actually running the tests. Finally. So normally when you do it step by step, you don't have these kind of issues. So just to be clear, this is a way how I don't use that kind of technology. It is very ineffective to use it that way. In my opinion, vibe coding in a real complex environment isn't working today. It's maybe for prototyping, but not if you really want to do something more ambitious, right? It's not
it requires a lot of constant human input. Right.
Yeah.
If you want to work.
It is still an autocompleter. It is just an autocompleter on steroids with an agent, and you let it work like you, but it is not really like. So the more vague you are, the larger the prompt is, the more space it does have to interpret what you actually want from it or what. So it's now doing actually. So it's not changing the test. It is leaving the test, which is good. And it's fixing the implementation to meet the tests, and then it will probably run the test again on some point in time. And this is now a good thing. So we have a single prompt, and it's exactly doing what it's supposed to do. So that needs to be mentioned now as well. And let's take a look if it's actually working after that. Probably it is, because let's see. And then we need to take a look at the actual implementation, take a look at the browser, how it actually looks like. And then I sell it on Play Store. Get the money back. Yeah, but Adrian had a good point here. I'm glad this is happening on your machine, not on mine. That's one of the issues currently that if you use it correctly and you have a project where you have a need to do that, it can help you a lot. If you just use it for fun or for testing purposes, it is not yet worth it, in my opinion, especially not if it's a side project or something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't say.
Plus, you can see, we're an hour into our stream and we're sort of tempted to kill time, tempted to multitask rather than code alongside it, right? So we're more vibe coding. Like Adrian and I are fully capable of writing down the solution to this kata. But if we're writing a solution in parallel of it writing a solution, then we'll constantly interrupt each other, right? Because it will create something and I will create something, and then we will diverge in design, we'll diverge in intent. So it is very difficult to sort of make up your mind of, how much power do you want to give it? Do you want it to like run autonomously? Do you want it to do it step by step? Do you want to code alongside it? Do you want to do very little coding?
So it's of course a very inefficient test run. So that's another point.
That's
so
okay.
it costs you money to let that inefficiency run in that moment. So when I do the
so
test,
what I do like about Claude when it does Cypress tests is that it can visually ascertain what's on the screen. So it's very easy to write tests where you're sort of automating, hey, render this and eyeball it. And the button needs to be red, and it can ascertain the correctness of that test without you actually converting that to like a formal requirement, right? So that you would find an element and look at it, find an element, look it up, and assert that it is this color. You could just have Claude render it and ascertain its quality, which is how a lot of teams are using. Not a lot. Some teams are using Claude for that purpose, right? It's just it doesn't have any static prompts. It doesn't have any static assertions, but they're running it and then they're asking an LLM to describe what's on the screen, and then they're basically giving it a grade. They're giving a grade whether the component passes or not, depending on what the AI sees on the screen, which is much closer to how we do visual regression testing than how you would actually do visual regression testing with a visual regression testing tool like Cypress or Playwright or Selenium.
that's by the way the implementation.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take a look. What's going on? So I press right, nothing happens. I press left, nothing happens. That's the command thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Right, but there's no down. Is it supposed to?
You have to apply the command. Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's relative to the rover. That's correct. It did pick up. Like it can go forward, right, and left. It cannot go backwards. It can go forward, right, and left, and you can basically ascertain, if we go forward, left, will it end up at a correct position?
okay.
Did you execute it? I didn't see the rover move, or at least I didn't see where the rover was positioned initially.
No, it's not working. So it's still doing stuff. It's still testing.
It was changing it. Oh, okay.
No, I was just looking at the implementation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm seeing, is that it took our request to create a simple UI way too seriously, right? So in my future prompt, what I would say, I would restart this and I would say, give me a viable solution within the next 15 seconds and use the terminal if you need to give me a basic example. You use an ASCII terminal, use an ASCII input and output structure. That's what I would reprompt it to, because it's not worth debugging the components, right? Ironically, the most complex thing in this project right now is using components and React hooks, and it's very good at that. But it didn't get the spirit of the exercise correctly, because obviously we didn't prompt it enough regarding the we gave it a sub prompt from the requirements file, and that, like us giving it that prompt file, that the requirements file, basically made it, okay, can you just do one movement? It's at position 0, 0 and facing east. If you move forward, it should be at 0, 1. Forward, not right, forward.
Ah, now I understand. Okay.
Yeah, it's relative to the developer.
Okay, apply command. And now it's not working at all. So it's a little bit we have a lot of errors as well. There's something going on here in the error counter.
And now you can imagine
we have
how
a React
vibe coders
problem.
feel.
Yes, and
Yeah,
I
now you
think it doesn't make sense to go because we are just waiting until something, and it's probably not
interrupted.
100% working because
just
right now it's just wasted thing. So
Yeah.
I can't even.
So I would take the prompt. Revert the project, and restart from a simpler prompt.
Well, I simply cannot stop it. It's unstoppable right now. Hello. No.
This is why it's a research preview.
That was it. It was never the case before, so it's interesting as well. It says escape to interrupt, but it doesn't do anything. Probably I hard-kit it, but then I don't see the actual costs, and I would like to do that. But that's a little bit...
Yeah, because you interrupt the session.
Yeah. Come on. Let's stop it, because it's already very long. This is normally not like this. This is... there, $2. There we have it. Okay, it's now doing that as well. So we have spent $2. We have spent 9 minutes, and we aren't finished yet.
Oh, it's been an hour. In real time, it's been an hour on the stream.
We have wall time here. That's the that's the wall time. It's like 25 minutes. We have this Claude session open. That's how it's measured. And do we have a result which is working? Let's take a look at the test one more time. So first of all, everyone who's watching that, this is not how TDD is working. This is not how we're actually coding.
No, we
that is
didn't
a demonstration
do any
to them.
TDD. We didn't do any TDD here, right? We're
No, it
involving it. We're involving it to the degree that we prompted it to create a test list, an implementation of those tests, and a reasonable UI. I would have expected it to do it in that order, and it didn't. It deviated from the prompt, right? Now, this is okay because an engineer would also deviate from it. An engineer would just go try put something together to sort of see, to get more understanding and more confidence with the code base. But ultimately, I now think that prompting it from this perspective, from this position onward, would be nonsensical. So I would say let's revert the project. Let's finesse our initial prompt and let's go with a simpler solution. Keep the prompt. Let's keep the.
I have the prompt in a.
Okay.
Let's quickly do this, and this. Oh no, this file, roll back, and here I need to do some. Let me quickly. Let's do it like this. Mars rover Kata. So we have this again. It is. It's a little slow, the IDE right now, but now it's good. So it is back to the state where we have started.
I would now simplify the prompt. I would just say, just give me a list of tests in a text file. Remove the rest. Yes, so the first two prompts, and just tell it to give it in the text file.
Order them in complexity. We can add this actually.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't make sense. So we take that one, so we don't need a prompt thing. We could do interestingly.
Do remove the component. So remove the mention for the TSX component.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
Because I don't want it to build a UI right now.
That's true. So we do that two things right now.
Yeah.
We do. We do it here in Claude. So I basically restart the session now.
New session. Yeah.
And what we do here, and we basically do it like here. Wait a second. I'm not sure if this is.
I wouldn't do Juni right now. We're at the end of our. We're at the end of our episode, I don't want to include a second. I don't want to include a second LLM. Like let's just focus, because this is the thing, right? If you're unhappy with how long the agent takes, you'll be prompted to multitasking, but ultimately you're blocking flow. When the agent needs you, you'll be multitasking, you'll be unavailable. So it doesn't make any sense to optimize for capacity, for your time capacity at that point. What is it doing?
Probably a memory issue. It is creating the component again.
Just prompt it harder. Just tell it to create a list of reasonable tests in a text file.
But this is not really agentic in that moment. That is more like the first step, which you could do with, I restart that, which you could do with any form of generative AI, actually.
Did you expect this is how it would go? Like going into today's stream, did you expect
a memory problem?
No, did you expect that it would be so, let's say, cumbersome to get a reasonable result out from it?
I know that it's vibe coding isn't working currently, so it will be working in the future. Of course, it will be on some point in time.
We definitely biased it a lot by putting it into a front-end project, right? If we gave it a fresh setup where all it had was Node.js, it might have actually gotten to a solution faster.
Maybe because we added unnecessary complexity. Because it can't test React by itself. It can't execute the browser. That was a mistake of us. To just be clear, this agent can execute shell commands, node commands in the CLI, but not really a browser. So it doesn't have access to the browser. There are some agents which can do that, some with
it runs the browser and then it waits for the browser to terminate.
So we removed, in all fairness, we removed the capability for the AI to test, to manual test, acceptance test, the own visual working. So it is only focusing on the tests, and for a real engineer, it wouldn't work either. So
so teams that I work with generally have this issue as well. They're going into TDD and they're met with this issue of, should I do subcatenous tests and avoid the integration problem and just start with unit tests? Or should I do TDD, so acceptance test, like what BDD is supposed to be, right? Just look at it from a perspective of a user and start with end-to-end test tools like Cypress and come at the problem from a user-facing orientation. Both of these are correct. However, I see a lot of coaches, and I see Valentina, if Valentina is still with us, she will often give you this recommendation to just, don't start with unit tests. Now, I think her audience is tempted to misunderstand it as do not do unit testing when you're starting off TDD. It's like, no,
resistant speaking.
Yeah, just don't have the unit test be the first test. It's okay to have an acceptance test and then go deeper into unit tests. We have a comment from someone. Hey, nice to see what you're doing. Actually, I'm using Windsurf. Very interesting, but I have to be the architect. My next step is create testable development, but I have to prepare my strategy first, which I'm able to do testable AI software engineering. That's awesome. Adrian, what code do we have? I would like to wrap this up needlessly. It's okay for us to have a unsuccessful attempt at this stream, and we can sort of reiterate on this.
In the moment you said, let's create this type of prompt, and you was letting me write down these things, I knew it would not. So this was the reason why I asked the audience to tell us if they think it would work, because I was thinking it wasn't working, right?
I agree with you. This isn't a good way of doing it, but I think in fairness to our audience, I think we needed to show this baseline first, because if I came in with a magic prompt that solved the kata, that would be boring, right? If I spend 2 hours figuring out which prompt solves the kata, and then we can sort of wiggle our way, that's not realistic. Right?
So I think how we could make it happen, and it is still more effective, even with the UI version, would be you are the pilot, and that's the very effective co-pilot, and you would say, let's go with the test, what we have done now.
Yeah.
And then you say, okay, that's cool, implement the first test,
Yeah.
or basically implement the test as a scaffold and start with the first test and do the implementation, make it green, go to the next one, or something like that. So how we would prefer that.
Yep.
And if we would do that, even with Juni, which is not that effective like Cloud Code is, it would work, right? So that vibe coding mode is working. It was working actually very well with the migration I made from Next 14 to 15. But not really with the page router migration, because there was too much specific implementation and it was too much for one session. But there are, let's say, large refactorings migrations where you actually can let it run things. For example, we have sometimes those, let me quickly show that to you here.
Wait, hang on. What's the code right now? Like, have you given up on this?
What do you say? What do you mean code?
Like, have you given up on this exercise?
You said you want to wrap up. This is what I think.
Yeah, I do want to wrap up, but I would like to see the code.
Okay, never mind. Let me quickly. Okay, we have that one, that file. That's. Where's the test? No, okay, we don't have code.
Well, if it produced something, is it
this
just the
one,
prompt? Is it waiting for you to accept it?
No, it is this one.
Okay, here's a list of test cases.
Tests. Yeah.
Just having a conversation with us. Okay, so let's read them. Okay, can you make them slightly bigger? I can't read it very well. I mean, bigger.
Sorry.
I can read it, but the quality of the text as you're scrolling, yeah,
It should be better now.
Test the rover initializes. Okay, that's reasonable. So that's following zombies. I didn't want to prompt it zombies, so I wanted to see if it did zombies. So that's correct. Can turn left properly from each direction. Would you have implemented it that way? Rover is facing north at 0, 0. When it turns left, it's facing west.
Yeah, actually, I would. I think I would have done it. Not like that, but in the
it's
direction.
a bit weird, right? It's very machine-like the way it has structured the test. But it's okay. We didn't prompt it to do it any other way.
But left is a major action, so I would test if turn left is actually working or not. So I would assume that it's working, right?
That's right.
So we have a test moving forward without obstacles.
Good.
So we have rover and facing north, rover moving forward, expect positions to be equal. Okay.
You know how I would do TDD now? I would say I accept the list, skip all of the tests except the first one, and let's iterate on an implementation for it. That's
this
how
is
we'll
what I
continue
mean.
from. Yeah.
That's how we actually could work. And so if you do that, you could even think of not using the current AI implementation, do that in Gen AI, and then go to the actual agent to save some money. You could do that.
I tried that. It doesn't work very well. It tends to hallucinate. Right? So this step is important because I want to keep this code. And because it has generated this code, it is the simplest way of keeping the future tests in context, in the token space. Right? So the token window now contains all the things I will do in the future. And I don't need to keep repeating myself about where we're headed. So now I can just tell it, hey, skip, the tests are numbered. Good. Keep the first test and add it.skip or it.todo. I think it has to be to do. Skip, not to do, because it has an implementation. That's my kids yelling in the hallway, by the way, which is why we need to wrap up. They're having a good time. Can we do that? One prompt?
Yeah, of course. Whoop. So dictate me, please.
This looks good. Please put the tests in a test file. Skip all tests except the first one. And let me know when you're ready to iterate on an implementation on it with me.
TSX, use Cypress component testing, we have removed that from the prompt, so I need to do it because there's
I
no
would
other
have I would
implementation.
have preferred if we didn't use Cypress, but it's
Never
it's-
mind, you can do that right now.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I don't think we have v-test as well.
Does
But
v-test
I'm
run this?
not-
I think we can run v-test against this. If it's
but I'm-
configured, if the TypeScript, if the TypeScript,
let's do this.
if the transliterator is configured correctly, it should work. If you have tsconfig configured for v-test as well.
There are some v-tests for API testing. We actually use it for that. Okay. So go ahead. I forgot the rest. I'm not in AI.
And this is good. Please put the test next to it. Skip all the tests except the first one. And let me know when you're ready to iterate on it with me.
What?
And let me know when you're ready to iterate on an implementation on it with me. Because so I don't mind doing TDD like this, right? Because ultimately LLMs are primarily a text tool, right? So it helps you just not have to write all the text manually. So if you can, think of it like compression. I tell it, hey, I need a list of 100 German cities. My prompt, 100 German cities, has compressed that list into a simpler, shorter version. Okay.
It has written all the tests, but skipped everything.
Good.
I would
Did
have
it keep
used
the first
only,
one?
but never mind. So it is actually not skipping the first one described. There.
Good.
Sorry. There.
Good, good,
It is.
good,
It is.
good.
It is like that.
Good.
Let's go.
Let's accept and let's run the test. Now this is a slight cheat. Where are we headed with this? What's going on?
So it now creates the component.
That's okay. I don't care. Okay, good. So first of all, the mixed project prompt from your sample project, I think that has introduced a lot of bias that makes it hallucinate.
I have cleared the memory, so it shouldn't.
Yeah.
Now it runs a v-test.
Mhm.
V-test 1 passed, 9 skipped. It looks good.
Okay, and now it's about conversation, right? Which is why I prompted it. When I say, let me know when you're ready, it will produce a human prompt. So it feels like an RPG right now, right? So it feels like a text-based role-playing game, a MUD or a Deku MUD. If you've ever played online on Telnet in the late 90s, like
I did a lot.
There were these text-based role-playing games that you just played like this. Right, so it says the first test checks that rover class initializes, and it's passing. This provides a solid foundation. I'm ready to iterate. Would you just like to start implementing the turning functionality? Well, I just want to see the implementation for the rover first, and improve on its design if necessary. Right, because what I want to figure out now is it working the way I want it to work? If there's a design issue, it'll impact all the tests, and I want to refactor now before we make this problem bigger.
This is the implementation.
Okay. What I would tell it now is I would say, create a function on the class that accepts a string of sequential commands from the user. You can make turn left and turn right private and adjust the design of the test accordingly. Right, so this is also very important if you're an engineer working like on the web or anything, right? So if you're doing object-oriented programming, which this has chosen to do, the purpose isn't to create the object. The purpose is to create a workflow that most naturally resembles the workflow of the human that will operate it. Right? So a human will not press turn left, turn right. A human will input a string of commands. because that was the prompt of the Kata.
Mhm.
So we don't need a class that has turn left and turn right. What we do need is a class that accepts a string input. Now, how that is handled and how that can be adapted later, we can decide on a future refactoring session. But I definitely don't want, think of it this way. It exploded and extrapolated all of the tests in written form. And I normally wouldn't do this as a human.
Yes.
Because now the refactoring that I did, now it made that step more complex. But because this is an LLM, I'm telling it, no, I'm changing the design, and go ahead and fix all of the design issues that this has now caused. As a human, I would not do this. But with an LLM, I would, but I have to explicitly prompt it.
So we have a red state now.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's probably going to do it again. Allowed it to do it. Does a correction now.
Mm-hmm.
And now 1 is passed, 7 passed, 3 skipped. Oh, 7 passed. 7 passed? Oh.
That's odd. It unskipped it. Yeah, it unskipped the tests. Right, so
probably because it was thinking, okay, what you want now, you can already put that into
implementation. Yes, so
it doesn't do it like a human would do it.
It doesn't do it like a human would, and that's it. Like, I don't want it to act like a human, because a human that works like this will do it inefficiently and make a lot of mistakes. I actually want to prompt it. This is why I wanted to have this session with you, because if we do TDD with an AI, I don't want it to be the human. I want to be the human. I want it to be the robot that can ascertain multiple tests at the same time, make adjustments, and then come back to me for feedback. Right? So
that's the efficiency actually of the AI, which we assume it should have.
Yes, and I don't want to block it. Right? If I prompt it the same way I would a human, I will block it from enabling a higher efficiency mode of operation.
And that is flow coding. Just for everyone who's listening right now, the big difference between vibe coding, which is black box coding, actually some form of no-code practice, where you actually don't know how the code looks like. Here, we are still the pilot, but we don't do the coding anymore. Instead, we let an AI do... Yeah, we are watching the coding and we are prompting how it should code.
Yeah.
But what we're doing right now, we let the AI still creating code, but we review the code every time it has created it and then iterate from that standpoint. Yeah. But we keep it in very small batches.
So the prompt that we gave it was meant to be just as a design direction. What it actually determined is when we said it needs a sequence of commands, it actually went and implemented it, which I didn't want. Right? Like, that was accidental, right? So that was like, operator-induced oscillation or hallucination, right? It starts implementing the entire system, and I didn't really want it to do that, right? Which is why I wanted to demonstrate this TDD example specifically, because it'll often bite off more than it can chew, and it'll make you wait. And it'll prompt you, the human operator, to entertain the same thoughts as Adrian is doing right now, which is, I don't know what's going on. Should I cancel or wait till the end? And so if you want to go into small steps, you constantly need to check, hey, is this still a small step? Right? So, for example, I would have already canceled the prompt. Right? Because now this tells me that
it's going into vibing again, so it's probably
going
way
into
too
vibing
much,
again. Exactly.
But as I said, so it is still not the way I'm actually working either. So I am, let's say, what we had here is like we had that the second prompt we made was go from that first test here and implement the first test.
Yeah.
So I know that AI is not working like that. So it always try to do this kind of let's get things done and these kind of things. So Claude Code isn't lazy. Claude Code is actually doing quite a lot more than you actually suspect. And you need to be very...
The bottleneck is us being able to review the code. right?
But
So
this is the reason why you're actually following these things here while it's doing that. As what I do very often as well is to already take a look what's going on, that I can stay in the flow. So it is. I found out for me it is the only way to be very effective is to create something where I know what the expected output is. So
Yeah.
I define the expected output, what I want to have precisely, but small. So not 2 steps, 1 step
Yep.
at a time,
One step.
and exactly say this, not more. And
Yep.
Cloud Code is doing it like this. But as soon as we have a little bit of room, the problem is the room, we have hallucination, the room will be hallucinated, and suddenly it does all the other tests because yeah, you could argue that, yeah, but when I need to do this left and right thing, then we need to do this test now as well because it's a left test, right?
Exactly.
So this is the space you could give. And this is what we, so it is a form of flow coding because it is not like total vibe coding, but it's still, in my opinion, inefficient because you will end up reverting a lot of things and paying for that.
Absolutely.
Because you cannot really you cannot be responsible towards your team with the outcome this thing is creating for you, and you shouldn't. So the only thing where you need to actually commit, right? You need to make the commit, you need to make the push, and you need to make sure that you know what you have done, which is the reason why sometimes it is okay that the AI is creating large amounts of code, like and scaffolding an entire component, which is always very bloaty. So it is okay when it does some code there. But there is actually, when you really do with the code, you do coding alongside it. So as I said often in that session, I still use it as a very good autocompleter, even though it's an agent.
Yep.
So sometimes I ask it, hey, we have a problem. I can't understand the problem. Look for me for the problem. This is how I work often as well, and then implement the fix something. Oftentimes, sometimes a one-liner, sometimes several lines, but there is the effective sweet spot, right?
The test list it came up with, that was very good. The test list that it came up with, that we were happy with. What we didn't specify, that we should have, is on the requirements section, we should have said that, hey, try not to focus too much on the UI. Let's use a string input using this API. And I would have to describe actually the API in the prompt. That would have been more flow coding. But it's easy, it's easy to mistake Claude for a human being, and you start talking to it, and then it goes way too wild on, for example, we told it to skip the test because we want to iterate on the implementation. And the moment we gave it like a little direction on the design, it should have told us, hey, this is not related to the test that we have on skip right now. Should I stop? But I would have had to prompt it to expect that kind of like back pressure from me, right? So it's also very important that you can prompt it in such a way that it can stay on focus even if you make a mistake. Because if you make a mistake and it takes a too large step, going back if you didn't commit, if you didn't make a git commit, it's very difficult, right? How would you go forward from here, from this step? Like, are you happy with this step that it took?
No, the reason is I found out during the process now when using it for weeks, is that what we have now, the situation feels like a black box situation for me.
Exactly.
We have created so much code in such a, let's say, short amount of time, which is totally inhuman, which means that it takes more time to figure out what the AI is doing and if it's actually the correct implementation than to write it. What is that?
How much did it cost?
$1.15, 6 minutes
so
AI time.
It's very and it took us about an hour and a half of stream time. I don't know what the actual wall time was, but like stream time was 1 hour and a half. We spent about a few dollars on these different approaches. Like to me, it has a lot of traps, right? So you need to come in. Now, obviously, we didn't use our advanced prompts. I have some advanced TDD prompts that I use for training. I didn't use those because, honestly, it feels very artificial. I would lean more onto the side of maybe I write the tests and then I accept it and then I code a little bit. And then when I'm happy with the tests, I adjust the design and then I tell it, hey, here's my adjusted design. Now help me implement it. But oftentimes, if there's any mistake in my prompt, if there's any vagueness in my prompt, if there's any if I treat Claude, if I anthropomorphize the AI too much, and I assume that it'll let me know if I made a mistake or something like that, rather than taking me seriously, it can quickly waste your time, which we have seen today, right? So this is primarily what I wanted to demonstrate: is that yes, I know how to prompt. Like I have done this, not this kata, because the March server did it for the first time, but I did a similar kata with Claude, and I know how to learn how to prompt it, so it gives me the perfect implementation in 1 go, 2 goes, no problem. But the problem is that you, the human, need to learn what to tell the computer, and that's programming. It's like you needing to do trial and error with Claude. That's programming. You're programming the AI to give you the solution in like a few steps, or in 1 go, or in a 1 hour conversation. So if you're supplanting your programming time with time spent programming the AI, if the AI's memory is not very good, if you cannot extract this process as a learning, then you have essentially wasted your time. Because it would have been probably better to just do it manually and only use it for like those really, really annoying small things, like, hey, my vtest is not configured. Can you give me like a baseline tsconfig setup for vtest? Like that it's great for. The test list was okay. It was okay-ish. I would have worded the test differently, but obviously it's very difficult to word everything that I would have done differently. Normally what I would do, like in our TDD setup, I would use its scaffold and I would reword. I would comment out what it did, and I would add my change above the commented outline, and I would say, I have reworded the test. I have left the old tests in. Learn from that example and remove the code that I have commented out for you when you're ready to continue. That's how I would prompt it if I wanted to learn from me about how I would phrase them differently. Because I don't want to, like do kind of like a reverse psychology and psychoanalyze myself so that I can explain what I would do and then tell it what I would do so that it can produce a similar style of result than I would. Because that's just wasting my time. Because again, this is a fairly simple example, but ultimately, maintainability in your process and maintainability in your code has to do with how easy it is to do a simple change, or how easy is it to express requirements as a series of simple changes. That's what we really want to get software engineering down to. Is okay, you have a complex thing, UI, backend. Okay, what is the simplest version of that? How can we express that as a simple series of changes? That's what we want to get down to when you're flow coding. I think that strategy works the best, and it's easy if you're a beginner, right? So Adrian and I are, let's say, intermediate users who have sort of pretended to be beginners today, so that we prompt the AI in a naive way and see what happens, and see like when our defensiveness, our resistance kicks in, and we say, this doesn't make sense, interrupt the AI and let's start from scratch. Because this is primarily the frustration developers are going through with things like Copilot and things like ChatGPT. ChatGPT hallucinates a lot on coding problems. And it's this, personally, this is what upsets me a lot, is that people don't have a tight enough short circuit mechanism for, this is taking too long, I should probably do it manually.
Sunken cost fallacy.
Exactly.
I have already waited, now I can wait until the end.
Yeah.
That's exactly a cognitive error we have here. So to wrap up from my side, in general, it's cloud code, using it, even Juni, can be pretty effective if you have the right use cases for it. So the use case to write an entire app, what did I say? The use case to write an entire app is not the effective one, because it is way too much for the current AI implementations we have there. So it doesn't work. So it is like you have a task to do, and you have subtasks to do, and then you can actually work one task after each other down, right? And really take a look. So it may be that the task you have defined up front, after the second task, you already readjust the direction, steer into another direction, and these kind of feedback-driven approaches you do. It is the very same thing as you would code yourself. But you need to make sure that this thing is simply doing what you would have done way faster than you would have without changing everything, without doing anything. Like it is pretty much tempting, and I know it's tempting for especially younger generation developers who are thinking, oh, now I can do those great things on my own. Right? I'm listening to those kind of things quite often, and I have a big problem with that because I don't trust the code we see here. There are many things which we just saw here, which I wouldn't see as something which is easy to understand, those kind of things, right? So we never said something about a class implementation, for example. So we are in a React project. Why is it actually creating classes in a TSX file? So these kind of things doesn't make sense because we haven't prompted it, and we haven't prompted it because we try to be like having these holistic prompts, which is not working because either you forget things yourself because you have an idea, but you translate it in a way which there's a lot of loss in transmission, right?
Yeah.
And in the next moment, you just realize how wrong that it actually was when you see it, and you waste time. So try to be precise what you want to do, because we are still working in a human code base, which is flow coding with AI. You can do flow coding without AI. So we didn't use the terminology flow coding that much, but it was existing before AI. And we need to learn that if we want to do it that way, we should do it that way. And if we start to do vibe coding, we just need to be aware of that these kind of things aren't really working in a real world scenario, because you do that for several times, and then you realize that you have lost control and overview over your own project.
So
and that's a big problem.
You need to have a fitness function, whether that's you eyeballing or whether that's a test running in the background. So when you're doing TDD, the biggest issue is if you allow the AI to also write the tests, then you don't have a fitness function, right? So if your fitness function is the tests and you're telling the AI, you can't touch the test, I wrote the tests, but you can touch the implementation. Just create something that passes all the tests, like that is how I would reason with a machine that is capable of developing. That would be reasonable. But when you give it access to the tests, or you wrote the tests and it's allowed to modify them, you lose your fitness function. Because when it creates tests that don't run, you don't know the quality of the tests, which the whole point of TDD is to see the test fail. And the AI always skipped over that phase, right? Even when I asked it only for a test list, it already provided an implementation that compiles, right? So it is, of course, again, it's our fault, right? Like it's a prompter mistake. But it's annoying if you have to prompt it everything. Like, this is my experience, this is my expectation. I want it to be object-oriented. I want it to be TDD style. TDD style to me means X and Y and Z. Because then you basically need to give it an encyclopedia of pre-prompts of everything that you assume to be important, and you sort of need to pick out what is important detail and what is not important detail, just to have like basic functionality that would mimic your style, right? So when I'm working with teams that review AI-generated code, my first instinct is their review process kind if a human committed AI-generated code? Because it is very tempting to see this in code review. For example, Adrian, I don't know. I see at some point I saw there was like 700 lines of code generated. Let's say you put that in a PR and say, hey, this is what Claude generated, yada yada. Now it is very tempting.
You need to review that before you actually put
now
that
it's very tempting. It's very tempting to say, oh, Claude generated this. I'm just gonna be mean at the code, and I'll nitpick everything Claude did wrong. But ultimately, the person who creates that PR, if you allow this kind of like development workflow, even though the developer didn't write the code, they will still emotionally attach to all the comments that the code has now produced in the team, right? And if you're using AI, even with like a fake TDD workflow we did today, if you're using AI to generate code and then you're not sure if it works or not, and you commit because it's work in progress, and now you need to step away and take care of the kids and pick up the kids in daycare, it can create this illusion that you're actually, oh, we just have a lot of code, it's work in progress, it's garbage, please nitpick it. The first time your team does this, they'll be, okay, cool, new guy, let's do it. The second time they'll be annoyed, they might nitpick. It baits toxic tendencies in code review processes. And the third time they'll just ignore you. The third time is like, no, that's your AI generated junk. Please review it yourself and just make sure to tell us when it's ready for human review when you have done the human review yourself already. And at that point, if the team regresses to that kind of behavior for too large batches, that is definitely a net negative on the team's performance going forward, because they will be working too slowly compared to previously, and the batch sizes are going to be too large compared to previously. And even if you did get a productivity boost in how you are working individually as a developer with Claude, overall your team will suffer a hit, because when you're prompting Claude to help you develop something, it should also understand, and we didn't do this today because it's too complex for like a single stream, it also needs to know about your path to production, right? So it needs to understand, not only do I need a working solution, I need a solution that will pass review. So I need a solution that can be merged today. I need a solution that can be deployed today. I need a solution that can be easily observed for bugs in production today, and possibly even fixed today. It's 4 p.m. We have 1 hour. Let's see what we can manage in this time. That's how I prompt it, right? Because it needs to, because when you're developing, path to production is in the back of your mind. And that's what's creating pressure. And that pressure is a healthy constraint. LLMs notoriously do not keep track of time. So that pressure is already lost. I often, when I use agentic AI, agentic or flow coding or flow prompting for other business processes, I always tell it what time it is. I always tell it, hey, it's 5 o'clock on Tuesday. We have 10 minutes to produce an increment on this document, right? Because I need to introduce the time constraints, the pressures that are implicit for you as a human operator, but the AI needs help with that. Because if it hallucinates for an hour, that's a problem. So I need to tell it, hey, like I can't afford you hallucinating for an hour, right? Like it has to understand, it has to be sort of risk averse when I'm under a lot of time pressure, and I need it to operate with me in its highest confidence space and tell me where it is not confident. And TDD is basically like that when you're doing it human to human. But you need to be careful, like when you're accidentally over prompting it. And revert. TCR is great. Test, commit, revert, right? So you write the test, you say, this is my hypothesis, we're going to do it. If I'm wrong, we will revert the code. I'm not going to iterate on the AI junk. If it's wrong, I will revert, which we have demonstrated today, right? TCR, I think, is very, very powerful for AI flow coding, but it requires even more discipline than TDD from the human operator.
Okay. I would say we wrap up.
Fun experiment, but this was a fun experiment, and I'm glad we did this with a kata we haven't done before, because I suggested we do Gilded Rose, and I've done Gilded Rose so many times that I just know I can accidentally bias the AI so easily that it's not fair anymore. It's not a realistic test anymore.
So I think that there would be ways to create small application, like we try to do so with agentic code. It would be possible, but it would be ineffective. So you would create that more as a prototype. You see this
we have a
Minesweeper.
We have a question on Substack.
Oh, okay. Let's go ahead.
Alberto asked, what do you think about add tests by behaviors and check them before change to other behavior? Yeah, so again, I can do that very well manually, right? Like I can add the behavior manually, describe the behavior manually, but then I'm not really I'm not really getting any benefit from the life cycle. And Alberto, I do apologize if I'm late to answer your question. I don't see a timestamp on your question. I hope you're still here and you caught this. So if you're going to add behaviors and tell Claude, hey, we're doing TDD, let's do it in TDD style, I find it takes on a way too academic role, because TDD was developed for a human. A AI does not need to be following TDD, right? So I just need to be able to instruct it well enough to say, hey, like I want to make a small step here. What I wanted to demonstrate today is how easily it can break out of its, you tell it, hey, don't use M dashes, and you hit enter and you prompt it and it has an M dash in it. Adrian told the previous prompt not to use ternaries for the JSX components. What do you see? A moment later, there's ternaries in a component, right? So it is very easy for it to deviate out. So even if I say, yeah, let's test behaviors, etc., 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 the moment I get carried away and ask something a little bit too greedy, it might deviate from my guardrails, which is why you need a different guardrail outside of the context space, token space of the AI to act as a fitness function, right? So I will have tests here that it doesn't touch, and then I will use these tests to basically give it feedback. If it can modify the feedback function and the implementation function, and we're doing a process that it's not getting feedback on, then it can hallucinate with like full freedom. So again, it is not an effective strategy for like doing TDD with a machine. I think machines don't need to do TDD. TDD is for you, the human, to force yourself to have like very low cognitive load on a certain task. But if the AI then over prompts and over generates, you need to stop it. Like, so the fault is ours. What happened today? We are in control here. We entertained. We were too patient with the AI. We allowed it to take on too much scope. That's the point here, right? Like you need to be extremely aware of, oh, this doesn't need to happen. I was just stupid in how I prompted it the first time. I shouldn't even be iterating on it. I should just revert and like change my original prompt, which we've demonstrated when we went from like that big UI experiment down to a more text-driven. Just give me the test list. Even that. Sorry, I interrupted you, Adrian.
So I have the Rauschmeißer-Musik.
Rauschmeißer-Musik. Okay.
So it's the music in the end, because you try to wrap up since 45 minutes, and I think I need to
it was more fun. It was more fun than I thought. Like doing
it
that.
was actually fun, yes. Maybe on some point in time we could make a session where we actually really use it, but that needs to be something spontaneous, because it is not like you use it always. I don't use it always. I use it in particular spaces, because I mainly code myself still. And that's the reason why it's only $300 right now, because it's still expensive. It's a large code base, and I do very complex things. So it is really draining my mental capacity, especially in the evenings. I work long hours often, and there AI really helps a lot when it really takes off this mental capacity, especially in the evenings. I don't say that's a good way of life balance, but that's my life. That's okay. So it's not a recommendation here, but AI can really help you to not be like overly loaded with so many complex things. And you can offload when you get used to it. You know what the AI can do and what it cannot do, and what to expect and what not to expect. So final verdict: vibe coding is still not working, not in a real world scenario, not in a real world code base, but flow coding with AI is, if you can do it right. So we need to learn AI. To use AI, we need to actually practice together with it, and we need to develop an AI competency to understand how AI is working and what we actually take from it and what our position is, and not just take for granted. And I would recommend juniors to not use AI in that way. My personal thing, because for learning purposes, yes, use AI. It can help you a lot. For explanation, use it as a teacher, but don't try to use AI to create the code that you can actually have a junior job. That will not help you at all. It will hurt you.
It will hurt you. You're very prone to doom scrolling, right? So when Claude when you lose track of what Claude is doing, and you're just hitting space, enter, tab, whatever it is, in your editor, and you just keep accept, like that. Like you're too far gone, and you're just waiting for it to finish. But it might not finish in a reasonable amount of time, right? So you as a junior will not have the correct intuition to say, no, I need to abort and revert and start from scratch. You will not have the mental clarity and discipline developed enough yet to make that judgment call.
And you need to have the strength and the bravery to use the revert button and the end stream button. not staying in a sunken cost fallacy and doom scrolling the entire stream to 10 more minutes or something like that. Now let's go ahead. We have next week a next stream about is it still the same schedule? Which was it? It was
we moved one.
Continuous something.
Yeah, we had a sick day. We moved one. The next episode, the title we chose for it,
continuous deployment with trunk-based development.
Yes. So I specifically wanted to do a little intro on this book by Valentina Cyril. It's a great book. It basically has a lot of steps about how a human operator would do what we did today, but story slicing, incremental deployment, and how to basically roll forward and not lose track of like too large batches and too large scope. Definitely good topic for next week. I'll prepare that, and we'll see you then. We should do this again. This was fun. Maybe without Claude next time.
With Junie then.
Yes. Okay.
With Junie then.
Yes.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye.